Here are 7 tips to sight read faster, increase your fluency, and actually just have more fun doing it. These are things that I've done for many years and played around with. I mean, honestly, I have over 30 strategies for sight reading, and I'm currently building an entire course on this. But these 7 in particular kind of strike the balance between being classic tricks that everybody teaches you versus having just enough originality in there that are unique to me, or at least unique to very few piano teachers. And so you have some things that you can try out which will push you, and then some things that can be a little bit more basic and not push you so much but still give you great results. So without further ado, here we go. Number 1, scan through your music and get what I call the bird's eye view. So what does that mean? It's like, imagine the bird is looking at the entire land underneath him. And he's not looking at the details of the trees and the dirt and the soil and all of that. He's kind of just getting an idea, like, here's land and here's a lake and here's all this. We can do the same thing on sheet music when we don't look at every rhythm and every fingering and everything, but we look for just sort of where the sections and the textures are. There's not necessarily something you have to do specifically, but you're just trying to see, what do you observe from 10,000 feet up? That's something that you can really benefit a lot from, where the key signatures change, time changes, texture changes, and just take a couple minutes to look at your music before you do it. One of the things that taught me this lesson was when I was doing my grade 7 exam here in the US with the MTNA syllabus. They actually allowed you to take a couple minutes to look at the music before you were supposed to sight read it as part of the exam. Like, that they didn't dock you down, they even encouraged you to do that. I'm like, that's okay. And ever since, I've used that tip. We come to tip number 2, which is just to keep going. It's so important, because if we miss something and then we stop, we're actually doing the worst thing, which is to not develop a rhythmic sense of flow. Many pianists have said this over the years. I think it was one of the jazz greats, maybe Bill Evans or something, that said, rhythm is king. That is so incredibly true. If we keep the rhythm going, we have much more sense of momentum, where we understand patterns and how phrase structure works and things like that. But if we stop every time a chord looks weird, like this, it's actually better to just bulldoze through that and get half the notes wrong. Bonus points if you know what piece I'm playing. It's Debussy, I'll give you a hint. That's one of my favorite strategies, is just no matter what tempo you go, no matter how many notes you get right or wrong, keep going. 3 is kind of related. It's the idea of like going ahead, but not necessarily the momentum. It's more the idea that your eyes are in a different spot than where you're actually playing on the page. This is one of those like slightly weirder tricks. Not all teachers talk about this, but let's just say, I know you can't see my sheet music here, but let's say you're playing the first note of the measure. You want to have your eyes actually on the second note of the measure. Not like a whole measure ahead, but like slightly ahead of where you're playing. And the idea is you're developing your peripheral vision from left to right so that you're actually anticipating what's about to come. And the reason this is important is because if I'm playing this run and I have no clue what's coming after that, then I'm not preparing my hand to go there. But if I see it's the same note, and so yeah, my peripheral vision told me my left hand has to move here. And I all of a sudden start making connections of movement that I wouldn't make if I'm only focused on the note I'm currently playing. Along this line, here's tip number 4, is the pencil trick, I call it. And it's the same idea of peripheral vision, but not when we're talking left and right. It's actually up and down. This came as a sort of an accidental trick because a teacher I had said, look in between the staves and follow that with your eyes. So don't look at either the right or the left hand, only look in the middle. And I'm like, well, that sounds cool, but I could not get myself to do it because my focus kept bouncing between the two. So it was my idea then to, in order to get what he asked me to do, I drew a line, and I'm like, maybe if I just watch the pencil line, it'll like keep my attention. And sure enough, it did. I have like mild ADHD, so it kind of like is really hard to stay focused on one thing at one time. If that's not clear from all of my videos, I'm always like, a bee buzzing in my brain, right? But that said, what happens here is when you're looking in the middle, your brain is telling you what's above and below. If you're just looking at the right hand, you're kind of not that aware of what the left hand is doing. And if you're just looking at the left hand, you're going to totally miss what the right hand is doing. So by looking in the middle, neither one feels comfortable, but you learn to adapt to this and you stop paying attention to any one note, therefore both get about the same level of accuracy. One of my favorite tricks by far. Number 5 is simplify the textures. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of piano music is just frankly very difficult, incredibly complex, and way too much to sight read. So this is a page I've literally never looked at. Let's give this a shot. So we've got a low octave, chord in the middle. I don't know how this is supposed to work. And a trill. And then we've got a middle line. And all sorts of stuff, and you're juggling 3 or 4 parts at a time. What you can do is grab what's convenient and throw out what's not. Because after all, you're not performing the piece, you're sight reading it. You shouldn't expect yourself to get everything right, as long as you get the idea of the piece. What I might do in that case is, what if I just forget the left-hand octave jumps and just do the trill and the chord? You know? I mean, am I really missing that much by not having an octave, for instance? And maybe that octave jump requires more practice than I can catch on the fly. I mean, there's unlimited depth to what you could do with this trick in particular, but just find some way of simplifying it, either by not playing all the notes or by picking a certain voice you want to bring out or bring more attention to. Sometimes you just like actually rewrite the gesture. So if it's like a specific run, I don't know, like something really crazy, maybe you just do a glissando, you know, for the purpose of staying in time and getting the right flavor. Because you can, of course, practice it and get that run learned later, but you're just trying to get the feel of the piece at first. Tip 6, I think we're on, is looking for the shape. Always look for the shape in everything you play, the pattern as well as the up and the down nature of the notes. Most people are just reading like note to note, not paying much attention to like the overall curve. Back in the day, I had a teacher say, connect the dots. You know the old game we play as a kid where you literally have, you know, a bunch of dots and you draw a line to connect them all? He said, do that with the note heads on your sheet music, and all of a sudden you see a literal shape. And he said, you know, there's a mountain shape that goes up and down, and there's a canyon that goes down and up. There's zigzag shapes that go back and forth. There's huge, you know, ascending shapes with like a small dip and things like this. Check mark shapes. And what you realize is that the more you kind of start to see these, the more you get close to the ballpark of what the actual notes are. Sure, you're still going to miss a few, but like for example in this WC, I see 2 down and 3 up is kind of this check mark shape. And now I got at least the right gesture. And I probably missed a note or two, but I definitely felt like I had to read every note less because I saw the shape. So the last one is probably one of the more basic things, and at the same time it's really easy to not do or to overlook, and that's simply to go slow. I mean, again, we're sight reading, we're not performing the piece. So I would hope that you don't feel like you need to play it at full tempo when you're reading through it. I saved this for the end because there is such a thing as sight reading in a performance setting, like if you're an accompanist and you have to sight read for a singer on the fly, or whatever, like where you have very, very little time to actually practice and you're relying on your sight reading skills. That's where this doesn't help, because of course you can't just ask the singer, can you go like at a quarter tempo? That's not going to fly. But if you're just doing it to build your sight reading skills and to sight read for your own pleasure, then, you know, take some of the edge off. Like I can sight read almost anything in the standard repertoire if I take it at like half tempo, right? Even a Passionata Beethoven. Something like this wouldn't be that hard to read through and get most of it right. If I'm just talking, get familiar with the piece. Hopefully those 7 tips gave you some ideas. I'm really curious which of the 7 felt like it was the most fresh to you. What have you heard and what have you not heard? Comment below. I would love to hear your feedback, and I will see you next time.